I just want to say right now that if you have a fear of clowns, even a small, manageable one, read no further. I've told the story time and again, over and over the years, to friends, and no matter how much I preface it with, "Are you sure you want to know?" and "Seriously, you're not afraid of clowns?" it just never seems to prepare them. One young woman I was dating at the time, who demanded I opened up to her, well, suffice to say I wasn't dating her much longer after explaining why I don't celebrate birthdays. She grew cold and distant, and right up to the last time I saw her, she was begging me to tell her I made this up, but I couldn't. Not convincingly, at least. Once I let the story out, there's no taking it back. So if you've ever had a weird feeling about them, clowns, I mean, really, this isn't something you want to get into. Maybe, however, you're someone who asks me why I don't enter my birthday on social sites or forums and so on. Or you wanted to get me something I liked, but I wouldn't tell you anything more than my age. Well, here's why. Once and for all. When I was a kid, I never knew what my father did for a living. To this day, it's still unclear. All I knew was that he kept everything at home nasty neat, down to his buzz cut, his immaculate thick-rimmed glasses, and his freshly ironed suit and tie. The only time I got a glimpse of my dad's job was when Mom died. He had nothing else to do with me and no plans for the scenario, so he took me to work and told me to sit quietly for the day. I entertained myself the best I could in that crushing boredom, until this tremendous din echoed throughout the entire building, like an ambulance or police siren, but different. Dad grabbed me and I didn't even see where he took me. Before I could even register what was going on, I was in this large tiled room with Dad and about 20 other men. And we were all stripped naked, and steaming hot water that smelled like bad chemicals rained down on us, almost scalding my skin, and everybody seemed really scared. I never asked him what happened, and he never brought it up. Dad was obsessive and was a huge geek. He was more about Star Wars and Lord of the Rings than I was as a kid. And to be honest, he'd probably still beat me if one of our old spontaneous trivia competitions broke out right now. I didn't see much of him since he worked all the time. So when I did, I was all about whatever entertainment he was interested in. It was the fastest way I could connect and secure some quality time. He took this stuff very seriously, and actually, he took everything seriously. He would put pens in a specific order, and he turned product labels facing out. They're always facing out. And if I so much looked at his paperwork, he had to primp and sort out again. And that's why it came to a shock when my 6th birthday was approaching and he started getting increasingly funny. See, funny as in weird and funny as in actually funny. For as long as I can remember, he would come home, stand in the doorway, and then loosen his tie and step in. Then he'd put his keys, wallet, and his clip-on security badge in this little wicker basket we had at the table by the front door. And he walked the length of the living room to the hallway, all the way to his bedroom, and only then would he actually take off his tie. It was the same thing every time, and there was nothing I can do to alter the routine. I can have anything from a muddy toe to a black eye, and he would just talk to me about it as he proceeded through the routine without a single hitch. So it was even more surprising when he came home one night, bursting through the door, whipping me up with the air with his hands under my arms, and spun me around the room. His grin was wide, but his mouth was closed. I remember the blissful look on his face clearly, but more than that, I remember seeing my own expression of shock reflected in his glasses. He hummed as he whirled me about. I think I screamed or yelled for him to put me down, but I can't be sure if I did or I just thought I should. Either way, he dropped me to my unsteady feet as quickly as he lifted me. The inertia and the surprise of it all made it hard for me to stand. "What's going on?" I asked eventually. "Your birthday's almost here." And he danced out of the room. I just stood there, standing in the empty doorway of his bedroom, and I watched him closely after that, basically for any sign he was about to or approach, and or accosted me in this manner. He seemed a lot happier. He flipped pancakes in the air, and even if they landed on the floor, and a lot did, he'd just leave them there. I spilled milk on the floor once in this throw rug we had in the living room, somewhere I was expressively not supposed to be drinking or eating, and when he found out, he just blew a raspberry and went outside. I can't express how upsetting and wonderful this change was. He sat in the lawn chair and we tossed a ball back and forth, and I talked a lot. I remember trying to fill up the void of conversation, but he just went back to humming. Over and over again. It was kind of like the Oompa Loompa song from that Willy Wonka movie, but the last bit didn't match. He was putting an emphasis on the last syllable. Later, I cleaned up the milk the best I could without any provocation or scolding. I just knew that rotten milk stank, so I figured on my own that I needed to get rid of it. My birthday got closer. Dad said I could invite anyone I wanted, and in fact, I had to invite at least 10 people. Even then, the oddity of setting a party minimum instead of a maximum seemed backwards. "What kind of party is it?" I asked the day before it happened. "You'll see," he giggled, and I'd never heard him giggle. I'd never heard anyone's dad giggle. "But I need to know so I can tell the other kids," I insisted. He turned to me suddenly, and for a second I thought my old dad was back, the one that got pissed if you asked him too many questions. Instead, he leaned down and smiled that same closed-lipped smile at me. "You want it to be a surprise," he said excitedly. And he didn't ask. He told me flat out this is what I wanted. The normal thing would probably be to say, "You want it to be a surprise, don't you?" Or maybe even, "Come on, it's not fun unless it's a surprise." And I just shrugged and walked away. I wanted to stop hearing that humming. The night before my birthday, I woke to the lights in my room suddenly being flickered on. "Dad?" I asked, rubbing my eyes. And he was sitting on the room on the edge of the bed, just smiling. "Dad?" I drowsily repeated, What's the matter?" "I can't sleep," was his response. Then he pulled his arms in close to his chest and thrusted them towards the ceiling with a sharp, high-pitched yelp. "I'm too excited," he said, gritting his teeth. I had no idea what was happening, and at this hour, probably early morning as opposed to late night, I barely even remembered what the next day would bring. "Are you okay?" That's something I should have asked a lot sooner. "No," he laughed. "Better God, why aren't you excited about your party? I'm so excited. I have something so great, but I can't tell you because it has to be a surprise." He growled as if in frustration as he clapped his face with his hands. "Why does it have to be a surprise? I want to say," he whined. "Dad, I don't like this." "What?" "How you are. You're scary." "Don't be stupid." "I'm not stupid, Dad." I pulled the pillow over my ears and groaned. As far as I know, he never left that night, and I fell asleep before he did. Anyway, all throughout school that day, I was quietly terrorized by what kind of party my dad was planning. He'd been acting so erratically that I had concocted all sorts of outlandish scenarios in my head. There'd be too much, a whole embarrassing noisy carnival in my yard, or there'd be nothing. Just my dad in his underwear chasing my friends around the house and humming. It could have been those, or it could have been anything in between. Oh, God, my friends. Even if everything else was normal, I'd never hear the end of how weird my dad was. They already made fun of me for only having a dad. They'd call me orphan since no one among us really knew what that meant. I was wishing it wasn't my birthday, to the point where I actually tried to specifically make that my birthday wish. No more birthdays ever, including this one. But the party did roll around. And my dad just stood in the front yard, just full suit and tie, holding a madrid of multicolorful balloons, and a cardboard sign erected in the front yard was crudely scribbled with, "Fun times, stop here." I was incredibly embarrassed. When all the kids had arrived, 30 in total, and the parents have left, taking advantage of the free babysitting, word was already starting to circulate about how strange and funny Dad was. Kids were already starting to make things up, and they didn't have to. Ricky says your dad drinks toilet water. Miranda saw your dad eating a dead mouse. Sarah said your dad pooped his pants. I had feelings that none of this was true, but because of how he'd been acting, argue as I might, I couldn't actually discount it from my head. The backyard had been set up with tables filled with cake and party favors, and a single large trunk. Streamers and balloons were attached to every available surface, creating almost a claustrophobic room of vivid windstrip colors. My focus, however, was on that trunk. It was long and silver and looked metal. Yellow stickers would look like black spiders dotted its surface, and a large white banner across the front of it read, XJ332, authorized access only. Yeah. The lid was held on with this large combination padlock. What's in the trunk? I asked, pointing at it. Oh! Dad covered his mouth, and his eyes bugged out. Oh! He bobbed his head up and down. Shh. He pushed his finger across my mouth, and I slapped his hand away as hard as I could. I didn't like his attitude, and I didn't like him anymore. I stormed away into the house. I didn't want anything to do with this party from now on. Dad tried to coax me to come out and even got the other kids in on it. He called me strange and silly and stupid, and he told me that I was a gigantic baby because I wouldn't come out. And the kids repeating everything that he said, and he laughed at me. All of them laughed at me. That didn't really change my mind. If anything, it made me madder and madder until I definitely resigned myself to never talking to them, any of them again. I watched from my bedroom window on the second floor as my dad played all sorts of games with the other kids, and I wanted to play too, but I hated them. I hated him. More than anything, I wanted to go out there and break everything they're having fun with. After an achingly long amount of time I forced myself to watch, Dad finally went over the trunk and fiddled with the combination lock, and I heard that humming again. At least I thought I did, at first. I cracked open the window and listened, and all the other kids joined my dad in that weird tune, but they were singing words now, and they were words. Torso, torso, torso the clown. Torso, torso, torso the clown. Torso, torso, torso the clown. Torso. What the hell did that mean? I mean, wasn't it like Bozo or Groucho or Amazo? Anyway, Dad removed the padlock and threw it over the fence, and all the children cheered, and as Dad lifted the trunk lid. I stood as high as I could on my tippy toes to see what was inside the trunk and for what Dad had planned for my birthday. For my birthday. The party which now seemed to belong to everyone else. I saw something move inside, and then a single white glove shot out and gripped the side of the trunk. Another hand followed, and the arm seemed to be clad in ruffled pink sleeves. And just as suddenly as the hands emerged, the clown thrusted his head out of the trunk and snapped his neck, so his head was to the side to look to the other kids. Everybody laughed and hooted and cheered, and the clown's face, it was disturbing to me. Bleach white with a perfectly round red nose and this tiny derby hat on his head, but the eyes were shut, as if the clown's oversized, toothless grin was too wide for him to keep it open. That expression remained frozen on its face. The clown lifted himself up like he was doing a push-up. The kids started chanting his name excitedly, and one or two started shouting commands like, "Do something funny or fall down." The clown just stayed there for a moment, clutching the trunk like a bird perched on a wire. Then slowly, its head turned toward the house, angled at the window, my window, and stared at me. I say stared, but of course his eyes were closed. That is, until the bulbous red nose, that perfect orb attached to the center of his face, slowly began to slit down the middle. The skin of the nose pulled back in either direction, revealing a single, oversized eyeball pointed right at my window. "Come on," Dad yelled, also looking directly at me. "Cut me torso the clown! Don't be a fucking shithead!" The children oohed at the profanity, and the clown looked back toward the children with its single eye. Then it hurled itself out of the trunk, just an upper body, trailing intestines and dislocated organs behind it, and he walked with his hands, ran. He ran, really, darting towards the crowded children at impossible speeds. The kids ran screaming, pushing each other over, tripping over their own feet in untied laces. They all just panicked, and they started fleeing like a startled cluster of geese. And at the center, where the crowd had been, the clown had positioned himself over a fallen little boy, his arm now halfway down the clown's throat. The clown didn't even have to hold the kid down. It just seemed like there was just no way for the kid to get his arm loose. Struggle at his might, he was stuck. All the color drained from him. I mean, he turned pure white, just paper white. It started from his upper arm, then his shoulder, then his face just turned pale and blank. The whole time, the boy's hand and forearm struggled against the inside of the clown's throat, and I can see in that thing's neck the ripping as the limb withered within. When the boy fell limp, the clown just let him go, and faster than before, it darted toward this little girl who was huddled at the base of a tree, crying. It stuck her leg and all the way up, and moving backward, it pulled her under a table. Her dress dragged from over her head, and she just screamed and screamed. I don't know what happened after that, because I got away from the window as fast as I could, and I hid in my closet. That's why I won't tell you what my birthday is, and that's why I get pissed if you find out. And if you try to surprise me, or even mail me a fucking card, I won't open it and I'll disown you. Friend or relative? Yes, really. For what it's worth, Dad did try to make it up for me for decades afterwards. Someone from his job came after I'd been fished out of the closet, kicking and screaming by police officers. I was just so incredibly terrified that, out of sheer feral madness, I bit one of the officers, and even at that young age, I tried to grab his gun. The guy from Dad's job was just like him, or how Dad used to be. Neat suit and tie, just normal. He explained to me that Dad loved me very much, and that was why he was very sorry for what he did. Dad wanted to see me happy again, and if I thought it was okay if I can leave the facility to go back with them. I was too young to really comprehend it at the time, but the guy said it was because Dad loved me, and that is why all this happened. He just wanted to make you happy. The guilt of your mom's past was just too much, and that's how I got him. I asked him what it was, but all I got was a pat on the head and a change of subject. And really, it only took a couple nights of sleeping in a sterile room that seemed more like a prison cell. Then I agreed to go back. At first I was scared and very hesitant to even be in the same room as my father. As years passed and nothing out of the ordinary happened, I eventually let some of my guard down, even though things really weren't the same. Even Dad's routine even changed forever. When he got home, he put his keys and his wallet in that wicker basket, but there's no security badge. Never again.